Okay, considering that red meat should cost more, beef and pork should cost more, and especially dairy products like milk and cheese should cost more. Considering that, there has to be more meat sold from lower vertebrate species, less intelligent, smaller brain vertebrate species such as emus and alligators. And there's increased competition for the consumption of meat and dairy products. So there's competition among men, among the races of man, to eat as well as possible, because it's a competitive advantage if you eat more and better meat products. And so we're in competition versus animals, and we're also in competition versus wilderness habitat, because some of the good land needs to be left to wilderness habitats, or else all the monkeys in the equatorial forest, all those monkeys will have no home, and they will all be like a small population of a few specimens that are living in people's homes, and not enough of them, and some of them will probably go extinct if we don't maintain some habitat for them. So that means everybody is breeding too many humans, and there has to be a global expectation for everyone who's near average and below average to have only one child. And that should be a global expectation, because there's too much human competition versus the wilderness habitat and versus the animals who are suffering a lot of cruelty because of our practices in meat production industry. So that means there's too many people, and we should have a smaller number of people. And not to mention, the best human specimens are not getting enough breeding opportunities, because the ones who are near average and below average are multiplying too much, too many children per couple. And so that should be a global expectation of those who are near average or below average to have only one child. And so Elon Musk was completely wrong when he said there should be more people because there's not enough people in the world. He wasn't considering how the animals are suffering and how the wilderness habitat is all being destroyed. Apparently he was not paying attention to that. So I said, if I was in control of the world, there could be 400% more people at the same level of damage as we have now, or less, because I would put all the people, consolidate all the people, and into zones for human residences in large cities, and I would use the advantages of allowing self-segregation to reduce the competition among the races of man, and I would have people live closer to where they work, and everybody would have a car that looks more like a Ford Model T rather than a great big SUV, a V8 SUV, fast and heavy. And so there's a lot of energy being wasted because of too much competition among humanity. If I had the authority to design the way of life of nations and all the nations of the world, I could make an arrangement that would support up to 400% higher population that we have now, at even less cost to the remaining habitat and less cruelty to animals. Well, that maybe is a little bit of an exaggeration, possibly. Then again, I might be right if I had the control to separate people by race, to reduce competition among men, and put up city walls and walls between nations, and city walls between districts within a city, and sort people out by race to reduce competition. And I could say all the below average men are going to get injected with estrogen and put into a work program where they're working in a factory sewing textile products, sewing clothes, working on sewing machines. So millions and millions and tens and millions and hundreds of millions of men. There's not enough estrogen in the world to inject them all, but I would try to boost the quantities of estrogen that we would have on hand to inject the below average men, hundreds of millions of them all over the world, injected with estrogen, put them to work on a sewing machine. A sewing machine is their workstation. And if they have good social credit and good productivity, they can work their way out into the world and find a wife and change from being a feminized male. They could have androgel and patches and androgel they rub on their body and masculinize themselves, and get a doctor to remove their boobs, and then they could find a wife if they prove to be better than the rest. So anyway, if I had a really restrictive control of all humanity, then hypothetically I could make a world that was engineered to be much less wasteful, much less squandering fuel, and thereby more productive agriculturally, and also gathering all the people. The advantages of racial self-segregation to reduce competition, reducing racial competition among men, the advantages would be great, and having much less crime. There would be no need for such fast, heavy vehicles, because they want a vehicle that's faster than the bandits. The bandits being people on bicycles, and used to be bandits would ride a horse. Nowadays a bandit could ride a bicycle, even a motorized bicycle. Anyway, so they want to have a fast, heavy vehicle so that they can get away from bandits. And it shouldn't be necessary to, and people should be able to have something like a Ford Model T, maybe with 6 wheels on it for a bus configuration for a larger family, a slower car that doesn't weigh so much, doesn't drive so fast, and doesn't waste so much energy applying the brakes and throwing away the momentum of the velocity that they had. So there's a whole lot of waste in the transportation industry because of racial competition. People afraid of crime, they want a fast, heavy vehicle. It's an arms race. Anyway, so that's enough for this video on my vision of a less squandering of resources in the future. And it's some people think it's a crazy idea. Anyway, that's all for now, and I'll take a break and then make more videos.